I'll never forget the night Ryan read my vows out loud. They were my words, every single one, stolen from the pages of my notebook and spoken like some cheap performance. But worse than hearing my brother steal my promises to the woman I loved was looking at Claire's face as the video played on her phone. Her hands were shaking and she kept whispering, "Those were supposed to be ours." That was the moment something inside me broke, because it wasn't the first time Ryan had taken something from me. It was the last straw in a lifetime of thefts. Let me take you back. Growing up with Ryan meant never really having anything that felt like mine. I'm not exaggerating when I say that if I picked up a new pair of sneakers, Ryan would buy the exact same ones the next week, just in a flashier color. When I landed a part-time job and saved up for a used car, Ryan showed up 2 weeks later bragging about leasing a brand new car, way out of his budget. Everyone thought it was just brotherly competition. "He looks up to you," people said. "He just wants to be like you." But they didn't see what I saw. It wasn't admiration. It was obsession. As we got older, it only got worse. I worked my way up at my company, and when I finally earned a small promotion, Ryan switched companies overnight. He bragged at family dinners that his new title was bigger than mine. When I proposed to Claire, the love of my life, with a modest ring I'd saved for, Ryan announced his engagement days later, with a diamond the size of an ice cube. He made sure to show it off all over social media, tagging me in every post like it was some kind of game. Our family acted like it was harmless. But behind closed doors, my mom pulled me aside once and whispered, "Could you stop showing off? Every time you buy something, Ryan destroys himself trying to top it." That hit me like a punch in the gut. I wasn't showing off. I was just living my life, and Ryan was drowning. I knew it. Everyone knew it. He was maxing out credit cards, taking out loans, leaning on my parents for money they didn't even have. But instead of stopping, he just kept digging. It was like he'd rather die trying to one-up me than admit he was lost. Then came the wedding. Claire and I had been planning for months. A small ceremony at a lakeside resort, nothing fancy, but it was ours. We had the flowers picked, the vows written, the guest list set. I'd never seen Claire so excited. And then Ryan struck again. Out of nowhere, he announced his own wedding. At the exact same resort, using the same vendors. He even called them himself, pretending there had been some kind of mix-up between the two brothers' weddings. He beat us to the date and posted the whole thing online before we even had a chance to blink, but that wasn't the worst of it. The worst was what I saw in that video. My brother standing under the same arbor Claire, and I had chosen reading my vows. My vows. The ones I'd written in a notebook I'd left at my parents' house. He must have stolen them word for word. Claire cried harder than I'd ever seen. She kept saying, "Those were supposed to be ours." He made them a joke. We postponed the wedding indefinitely. That was the night I stopped being the older brother who tolerated his nonsense. That was the night I decided if Ryan wanted to live in my shadow, I'd give him something worth copying. Something he couldn't escape. A friend of mine in real estate showed me a colonial-style house just outside of town. From the street, it looked like a dream. White trim, a big porch, a beautiful old oak tree shading the yard. But inside, it was a nightmare. Black mold under the floors. Foundation cracks wide enough to slide your hand through. A basement that turned into a swimming pool every time it rained. Termites chewing through the joists like candy. The kind of house that would bankrupt anyone reckless enough to buy it. So I played the role. At family dinners, I dropped hints about the perfect house I had my eye on. I showed my mom fake mortgage pre-approvals. I sighed about how it was just out of reach. I made it look like I was obsessed with the place, then pretended to give up. "Maybe one day," I said, looking crushed. And just like clockwork, Ryan bit. Within weeks, he was bragging about finding his dream home. The same house. He toured it once, ignored every red flag, and immediately made an offer to beat imaginary competition. He even waived the inspection. The next time I saw him, he smirked at me like he'd finally won. "Guess that house was meant for me," he said. "You should look for something in your price range." I smiled back, knowing exactly what was coming. The first storm flooded his basement. A month later, cracks snaked across his living room wall. Termites swarmed his pantry. The place was rotting around him. By summer, Ryan was broke. His marriage was collapsing. He was begging our parents for money they didn't have. And then one night, he cornered me outside my apartment. His eyes were sunken, his clothes wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. You knew. he hissed. You set me up, I shrugged. You bought it. No one forced you. 6 months later, Ryan was living in our parents' basement, telling anyone who'd listen that I had ruined his life. Most of the family didn't buy it. They just saw the wreck he'd made of himself. But then, last weekend, Ryan showed up at a family barbecue. I hadn't seen him in months. He looked different, calmer, too calm. He walked right up to me, smiling in a way that made my stomach twist, and said, I've been working on something. You'll see soon. Before I could ask what he meant, he slipped away into the crowd. He was gone before I even put down my plate. I stood there holding a warm paper plate with a cold feeling working down my spine. And that's when I knew Ryan wasn't done copying me. He was just getting started. The barbecue should have been just another summer afternoon. My aunt was telling some long story about her dog. Kids were running through the sprinkler, and I was standing there with Claire, trying to relax. But all I could think about was Ryan's smile. That strange, calm smile he'd given me before he disappeared. It wasn't his usual cocky grin, the one he wore when he thought he'd beaten me. No, this was something else. Something calculated. Claire noticed it too. On the drive home, she kept glancing at me. He wants you rattled, she said. Don't give him the rattle. Give him the seatbelt. I almost laughed at that, but she was right. Ryan had spent his whole life chasing me, and now he was changing the game. He wasn't just copying anymore. He was plotting. 3 days later, the first tug came. I got a fraud alert on my phone about a store card application in a town I'd never even visited. The bank caught it, blocked it, reversed it. The cheerful customer service rep apologized like it was nothing. But to me, it wasn't nothing. It was Ryan. I could feel it. I changed my passwords, added two-factor authentication, and wrote the date on a sticky note I tucked into a drawer. I treated it like evidence because I knew this wasn't over. 2 mornings later, another hit. Our IT guy at work walked over to my desk with a printout in his hand. Did you mean to send this? He asked. I looked at the email. It was supposedly from me, sent to a client, politely urging them to wire money to expedite a vendor. Except it wasn't me. It was a spoof domain, someone pretending to be me. My stomach sank. The IT guy said, We'll filter the domain. You're fine. We believe you. But his raised eyebrow told me what I already knew. Ryan was rewriting the story. He wasn't just messing with my accounts. He was trying to make me look like the villain. The little attacks kept coming. A letter arrived at my parents' house in a plain manila envelope. My mom and dad showed up at my apartment holding it like it was something radioactive. Inside was a copy of the inspection report for Ryan's colonial house, the one I'd baited him into buying. But huge sections were blacked out, and the margins were filled with notes that looked suspiciously like my handwriting. Notes that said things like, don't warn him, let him take it. He needs this lesson. My dad laid the paper on the table and tapped it once. We got this yesterday, he said. From family who cares. I felt my chest tighten. This isn't me, I said. You know it isn't. My mom crossed her arms. When did you first see that inspection report? Before he bought the house, I admitted. A friend sent it to me, her jaw clenched. So you knew. I tried to stop him, I said, by getting out of the way. If I'd shown it to Ryan, he would have bought the house twice over out of spite. The only way to stop him was silence. My dad looked at me, his face unreadable. So you knew, and you didn't stop him. I wanted to shout, You don't get it. He only hears no when it sounds like silence. But the words caught in my throat. Claire stepped between us. He wants this fight, she said firmly. We're not giving it to him. My parents went home, taking the envelope with them. That night, Claire and I lay in bed, both staring at the ceiling. Neither of us could sleep. We knew what was coming. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the doorknob rattled. It was 11:48 p.m. A soft jiggle, then a harder twist. Claire shot up in bed, eyes wide. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed and crept toward the door. The knob shifted again, then stopped. Then a whisper pressed through the wood. Open up. We need to talk, my heart hammered. Talk, I said through the door. I'm not yelling in the hallway like an idiot, Ryan's voice replied, calm and steady. Open the door. Not happening, I said. There was silence. Then, fine, then listen. Tomorrow a Detective Keller is going to call you. He'll say there's evidence you opened accounts in my name. That you sent those client emails? That you messed with my mail? You're going to deny it, and then you're going to be very quiet. If you're not... His voice dropped lower. I make Claire a celebrity. The way he said it made my blood run cold. You threaten her, I said, my voice shaking with rage. You don't talk to me again. Ever. I'm not threatening, Ryan whispered. I'm scheduling consequences. Claire's hand was on my shoulder now, her nails digging into my skin like she was keeping me from breaking through the door. I pressed my forehead against the wood, breathing hard. Then I said, "Good night, Ryan," and walked away before I could do something I'd regret. Call the police, Claire whispered. In the morning, I said. I want that detective to hear me with coffee and time, not a clipboard at midnight. She didn't like it. I didn't either, but it felt like the only move. The next morning at 9:22 on the dot, my phone rang. Mr. Whitman, this is Detective Keller. I'd like to speak with you about a report your brother filed. My stomach turned. Ryan hadn't just crossed the line. He'd set the whole field on fire. Detective Keller had the kind of voice you only hear in interrogation rooms on TV. Calm, flat, no wasted words. He asked me to come down to the precinct for a quick conversation. That phrase alone told me this was anything but quick. Claire begged me not to go. He set this up. That's exactly what he wants. I kissed her forehead, trying to look braver than I felt. If I don't go, it looks worse. If I do go, at least I get to see what he planted. The precinct smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Keller was waiting in a small interview room, his tie loose, sleeves rolled up. He had a folder on the table, thick enough to make my stomach tighten. He didn't waste time. He slid a page across to me. Recognize this? It was a bank statement. An account I'd never seen before. But my name, my social security number, my signature, my exact signature were on the forms. This isn't mine, I said. Keller didn't blink. He slid another page forward. A copy of one of the spoofed client emails. My work email, my email signature, even my little motivational quote at the bottom. This isn't mine either, I said. Keller leaned back, tapping his pen against the folder. Your brother's been busy. He claims you've been trying to ruin him financially. He's got a log of text messages from a number traced back to a burner phone, all in your name. He says you've been sabotaging him for years. I felt heat rush up my neck. That's projection. He's been copying me my entire life. Now he's staging this. He's building a case. Keller gave me the look, half skepticism, half sympathy. People always say their brother set them up. You got proof? That question burned into me. Proof. I had suspicions, instincts, a lifetime of knowing Ryan's tactics. But in the eyes of a detective, that wasn't proof. I'll get you proof, I said finally. Keller nodded slowly, then closed the folder. Then you'd better move fast. Because your brother's filing for a restraining order. If he gets it, and these accounts keep popping up in your name, this becomes more than harassment. It becomes criminal. By the time I walked out of the precinct, my legs felt like they were made of cement. Ryan had built himself a shield, and now he was daring me to attack it. That night, Claire and I sat in the living room surrounded by sticky notes, laptops, and half-empty coffee cups. We tried to map it all out. The fake bank account, the spoofed emails, the doctored inspection report, the burner phone texts. Every arrow pointed back to Ryan, but none of them touched him directly. He was careful. Surgical. Think like him, Claire said, her voice sharp with determination. If you wanted to frame someone, what's the one mistake you'd make? I rubbed my eyes. Ryan doesn't make mistakes. But the moment I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Ryan did make mistakes. Tiny ones, slips of pride. Moments when he couldn't resist leaving his fingerprints. Just to prove how clever he was. And then it hit me. The inspection report. I jumped up and tore through the drawer where I'd hidden the sticky note from the first fraud alert. I slapped it on the table next to the doctored inspection copy, the handwriting in the margins. It was meant to look like mine. But the S curved the wrong way. Exactly like Ryan's handwriting. He'd tried too hard to mimic me, and his own style had bled through. Claire's eyes lit up. That's it. That's the thread. You pull it, the whole thing unravels, I nodded. But even as relief flickered in me, another thought crashed over it. Ryan wanted me to pull that thread. He wanted me to push back. Because every time I fought, he got another chance to twist it into me harassing him. I felt trapped. Checkmate in every direction. 2 days later, the checkmate became real. I came home from work to find a note taped to my door. Not in Ryan's handwriting. In Claire's it read, "They came while you were gone." They took me in for questioning. Don't call. Don't follow. Just fix this, my knees almost buckled. The apartment felt empty without her. The silence was suffocating. And sitting in the middle of the living room, on the coffee table where we'd left our notes, was a manila envelope. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, Claire, sitting in the back of a police car, her eyes wide, her wrists cuffed, and on the back, in Ryan's handwriting, "Your move." I sat there with the Polaroid in my hand, staring at Claire's terrified face until the edges of the photo bent under my grip. My chest felt tight like the air itself had been poisoned. Ryan had finally done it. He had pulled Claire into his twisted game. The first instinct was rage. I wanted to storm over to his house, kick his door down, and end it once and for all. But rage is exactly what Ryan fed on. If I played angry, he'd win. If I played smart, maybe I stood a chance. I pulled myself together and made calls. Claire didn't answer, and the station claimed they couldn't confirm or deny if she was in custody. My gut told me she wasn't really arrested. Ryan just wanted me to believe she was. The cuffs in the photo looked fake, too loose, like a costume. But the fear in her eyes, that was real. Ryan had her somewhere, and he wanted me to dance, so I danced. I started digging into every fake account, every spoofed email, every doctored document. I printed them out, laid them side by side, and looked for cracks. That's when I noticed it. The metadata. One of the spoofed emails still had its original properties attached. The time zone setting was off. Not set to Eastern where we lived, but to Pacific. Ryan had always bragged about using cheap overseas servers for privacy. Turns out, he wasn't as careful as he thought. I copied everything onto a flash drive, stuffed it into my sock, and drove back to the precinct. Keller looked exhausted when I walked in, like I was the last person he wanted to see. "Detective," I said, laying the papers down on his desk. "You told me to bring proof. Here it is. The handwriting, the metadata, the timeline. He's staging it all. And now he's taken Claire." His eyebrows rose at that. "Taken her?" "He left me this." I slid the Polaroid across. Keller studied it for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose. "That's not a police car. Wrong cage partition, wrong cuffs. Whoever staged this wanted you to believe it was law enforcement." "Exactly," I said. "Ryan." For the first time, I saw doubt in Keller's eyes shift toward belief. "You're saying your brother's orchestrating identity theft, fraud, and now possible kidnapping?" "I'm not saying it," I said. "I'm proving it." I tapped the stack of documents. "You just have to look." Keller rubbed his jaw, then finally nodded. "Leave the drive. Don't do anything stupid. If she's really in danger, you'll get her killed trying to play hero." But Keller didn't know Ryan the way I did. By the time I got home, another envelope was waiting on the floor inside my door. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a single page. Printed directions to a storage facility on the edge of town, scrawled over with one sentence in Ryan's handwriting, "Come alone. Or she doesn't come back." I sat down on the floor, clutching the note. Every nerve in my body told me it was a trap. But I didn't have the luxury of waiting. Claire's face in that Polaroid wouldn't let me. I tucked the bat into the backseat of my car, slid the flash drive's backup copy into my pocket, and drove. The storage facility was quiet. Rows of metal doors stretching into the dark. I followed the numbers until I reached Unit 17. The lock was hanging open. Inside, a single lamp lit the room. Claire sat in a chair, duct tape over her wrists and ankles. But her eyes were sharp, angry. Not broken. And behind her, leaning against the wall, Ryan smiled. "Brother," he said softly, like we were at a family reunion. Right on time. My grip tightened on the bat, but I didn't swing. "Not yet. What do you want?" I asked. Ryan stepped forward, spreading his arms. "I want the ending I deserve. You stole the spotlight my whole life. Now I'll take yours. Identity, career, woman, everything. By the time they figure it out, you'll be the monster and I'll be the victim. Everyone will believe me because I've already laid the trail." He tapped the side of his head. "But you knew that. That's why you came. To stop me. So stop me." His grin widened, daring me. And in that moment, with Claire watching, I realized something important. Ryan didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted me to crack in front of her. To lose myself. To prove I was exactly who he'd painted me to be, I lifted the bat, and then I lowered it. "You're not getting my rage," I said, my voice steady. "You're getting my receipts." I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and held it up. "Every slip you made, every fake account, every doctored file. It's all on here. And Keller's already seen it." "You lose, Ryan." For the first time, his smile faltered. "You're bluffing," he said. Behind him, Claire's eyes lit up, and I knew right then the tide had turned. Ryan's grin flickered, the mask slipping just enough for me to see the panic underneath. He had built this perfect little web of lies, convinced that I'd thrash around in it until I strangled myself. But the flash drive in my hand, it was the torch that could burn his web down. "Give me that," he said. Stepping closer, his voice sharp now, the calm gone. I slipped it into my back pocket and squared my shoulders. "No, this time you don't control the story," his jaw clenched. Then with a sudden burst, he lunged. Claire screamed, her chair scraping across the floor as she tried to twist free. Ryan's hands shot for my pocket, but I was ready. I swung the bat, not at him, but at the lamp. The bulb exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging the unit into darkness. Ryan cursed, stumbling, his hands grasping at air. In the scramble, I pulled Claire's chair toward the door, dragging her with everything I had. Ryan caught my arm once, nails digging into my skin, but I shoved him off with a grunt. The bat clanged against metal as I swung wildly, forcing space between us. We spilled out of the unit into the cool night air. I ripped the tape from Claire's wrists as fast as I could. "Run!" I shouted. She didn't hesitate. Barefoot, hair flying, she bolted toward the car. Ryan charged after us. But the second he hit the doorway, red and blue lights flooded the lot. Detective Keller stepped out of an unmarked car, gun raised, his voice booming. "Hands where I can see them." Ryan froze. His eyes darted to me, wide with disbelief. You brought them here." I held up the flash drive. "I told you. I'm done playing your game." Keller's men swarmed him, pinning him against the wall, cuffing his wrists tight. Ryan fought, spitting every excuse in the book. "He set me up. He forged everything. He's obsessed with me." But this time, the story didn't stick. The proof was in Keller's hands. Not Ryan's. Claire collapsed against me, trembling. But her grip on my shirt was iron. "It's over," she whispered, like she was trying to convince herself. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. Days later, the charges stacked up against Ryan like bricks in a wall. Identity theft, wire fraud, attempted extortion, even false imprisonment. His lawyers tried spinning it, but the trail was too clean. His pride had betrayed him in the end. I testified in court, not with anger, but with clarity. I laid out the pattern, the obsession, the years of imitation that turned into sabotage. The jury didn't need me to beg. They saw him for what he was. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, Ryan just sat there staring at me. Not angry, not afraid, just hollow. Like he finally realized the game was finished and he had lost. Afterward, Claire and I drove home in silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. She reached over, lacing her fingers with mine, and for the first time in months, I felt peace instead of paranoia. At home, I pulled the last Polaroid from the drawer. The one Ryan left of Claire in the fake squad car. I stared at it for a long while, then slipped it into the trash. That photo had been Ryan's move. But the ending, the real ending, was mine.